I remember I would feel so sick, I almost felt like I needed to go to the toilet to throw up. I was feeling so nauseous, also because I was craving for more and more fat. My brain was craving for the fat, but my body was saying no, it's too much. Hey carnivores, welcome back to the channel. It's me, Bella the Steak and Butter Gal. I hope you guys are staying meat-fueled, fat-fueled, and having a great day. So today I was scrolling through the SB Gang page and I saw quite a pattern in posts, and that was nausea, feeling nauseous, or not having an appetite when cooking up meats, or feeling sick to the stomach when even looking or smelling meat. So I thought I would just dedicate this video right now, to talking about nausea, to sharing with you guys my best tips to combat nausea, to ease the nausea, or to prevent it from happening at all. So first, I do want to share a little bit of my personal experience with nausea. When I first went carnivore, and keep in mind, I went carnivore from being a vegan for 6 years, and I did it overnight, just like that. When I first went carnivore, my first few weeks of eating all the meat and the fat, there was a lot of nausea involved. I would be feeling nauseous all the time, especially after eating my meals. And I think that was due to just firstly, not being adapted to this way of eating. My body was just so not used to taking all this protein and fat, especially when I was vegan and I was on a low fat, high carb diet. So my body was still in carb mode. It was still used to processing the carbs super quickly, using that as extreme energy and crashing, and also going through those sugar cravings and feeding my body more fruits, more rice, more grains, oatmeal, sweet potatoes. So those were the types of foods my body was used to eating. So it's important to take into account your history of eating. What type of diet were you on before going carnivore, before going ketovore, or just zero carb, low carb, whatever it is? If you're shocking your body too hard, you may be feeling nausea. And that's definitely what was happening with me my first few weeks. I remember I would feel so sick, I almost felt like I needed to go to the toilet to throw up. I was feeling so nauseous, also because I was craving for more and more fat. My brain was craving for the fat, but my body was saying no, it's too much. So what should you do when your body's saying one thing, your brain is telling you to do another thing? So let's just first talk about fat intake. How is your fat intake, and have you been changing the amount of fat you have been consuming recently? I know that I always promote eating fat, and I personally feel that I have gained a lot of benefits, a lot of improvements in my skin, in my health, in my weight, just from upping my fats. As much as I love eating fat, I must stress that you should not be eating or forcing your body to eat more butter, more fat, more fatty beef even, if you're not craving it. So if you're not craving it, there is absolutely no need to force it upon yourself to eat more of it, because that is most definitely the reason you're feeling nauseous. If your body doesn't want the fat, yet you're still feeding it, it's going to tell you no by giving you lots of nausea and lots of feelings of being sick and wanting to vomit. Also, keep in mind that if you're new to carnivore, there is such a thing as an adaptation period. And I do believe it's much longer and sometimes more severe than the keto adaptation period. I've never experienced a keto adaptation period, but it just sounds like there's this keto flu involved. You're just going to feel a little bit sick. Maybe your electrolytes are going to be out of whack. But with carnivore, a lot of things may go out of whack. You may be feeling waves and waves of nausea. You may be out of commission for weeks, or you may be having extreme diarrhea. So these things tend to happen with people who jump into the carnivore diet from a carb heavy, from a standard American diet. It's just such a huge change. Imagine you're eating all these carbs every single day, all of these fibers, all of these oxalates and veggies for who knows how long of your life, and you jump into absolutely zero carbs, of just meat, animal fats, organs if you're eating them. That's a drastic change. So you do need to stay committed, stay on track, and just kind of push through this adaptation phase. And yes, nausea is part of the adaptation phase. It was for me, and if it's for you, you kind of just have to push through. With that being said, apart from the fat intake and apart from looking at your eating history and knowing that this is just part of the adaptation phase, here are my best tips to help ease the nausea, to help fight and combat the nausea. First tip, eat a little bit leaner. You sometimes just have to cut back on the fat. I know that a lot of you ladies are craving for the fat, just like me. I came into the carnivore diet, I ate a bite of the butter, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what my body and brain has been wanting for the past 6 years of being vegan. So my body was wanting it, no doubt, okay? So when I fed it, it was at first like, oh, feels so good, tastes so good. A couple minutes later, the nausea hits super strong, and I feel disgusting. So that's normal. Your body is just not used to digesting and processing all of that fat. So the best bet is to just ease off the fat for a bit, especially if you're in the adaptation period. Let's say you have had experience with the carnivore diet, but you kind of fell off track, or you took a little diverging and you ate some carbs and you're back on the carnivore diet. That does not mean you don't have to experience that adaptation, those symptoms again. You might have to experience the nausea all over again. So with that being said, it's probably smart to come back to the carnivore diet eating lean. And if you're new to the carnivore diet, I highly recommend that you don't pile in the fats just yet. Just start off eating leaner and just start off eating meat, okay? So don't add any additional fats. As much as you want to be eating those butter sticks, know that if you do that, the nausea is going to hit you real hard. So let's try to prevent that from happening by just eating meat. And you can always go with fattier meat if your body can handle it. But here's a tip. I have found that eating fat, let's say you got some really fatty ground beef, cook that without any additional butter, okay? Because we don't want the nausea to come back. Cook that, let it sit for, a while, let it chill, and maybe even put it in the refrigerator so it becomes cold. So why do I recommend that? Because I find anything a little fattier eaten cold does not cause any nausea. Call me crazy, but this is what I have noticed, and this is what I did a lot my first few months of being carnivore. I would cook all of my meats for the day, my ground beef or my egg pudding, things that were very fatty, which is naturally what my body wanted. I would cook it, I would let it sit, maybe chuck it in the fridge, and then when I'm ready to eat, I would eat it cold. So if you hate food being extremely cold, you can just set it at room temperature, let it warm up a little bit to room temperature and eat it that way. I just find that eating fat hardened up does not cause the nausea. Maybe it's just me, but I also have heard this from a few other carnivores I've connected with. So eating cold fatty meat or fatty meals, or even just chilled at room temperature, does not cause nausea, as opposed to eating it piping hot, melted fat, boiled up fat and warm. That usually causes nausea immediately after being consumed. So definitely play around with the temperature you eat your meals. Tip number 2, avoid rendered fat. In other words, avoid any type of cooked fats or burned fats. Especially if you're eating steaks, try to sear your steaks as lightly as possible. Keep it more on the rare side. When you overcook your steaks, any pieces of fat on that steak is going to bring that nausea super strong and super fast. So have you noticed that when you eat your ribeye and you eat that fat cap of the ribeye that has been cooked, you eat that and suddenly you feel disgusting and you feel nauseous and sick? It's because the fat was cooked. I bet you if you were to eat that little fat cap piece of fat raw, it would not bring the nausea like that. It would not bring the nausea as hard. You're not going to feel as sick. So there's something to cooked fats that triggers horrible nausea. That's something that I learned. So let's say you really want to eat that fat part of your ribeye, try to keep it as rare as possible. Again, hard, cold, rare fat. Raw fats are better than cooked fats. Another thing to keep in mind is, have you been recently drinking more broth? Have you been putting meat or fatty meat into that broth, into your Instant Pot? That could be the reason why you are feeling extreme nausea. For me, the moment I bring in the bone broth, especially with the fatty meats, I will have diarrhea the next day, if not the night of. So fatty broths, fatty meats, or fatty soups that have been cooking for a long time and at a high heat is not a good idea if you're trying to avoid nausea. There's so much fat in that soup, and one sip of it is going to probably trigger your nausea, and it's going to trigger you to run to the toilet and have diarrhea. So again, we're trying to avoid cooked fats, okay? So that includes broth, soups, bone broths or fatty meat soups and broths. Third tip, don't eat if you're just bored and you're not actually hungry. So I realized that a lot of people start feeling a little concerned because suddenly they're not hungry all the time. Whereas compared to when they were eating carbs or when they were eating sugar, they would just feel hungry all day, every day, you know? But the magic of the carnivore diet is when you eat your meal, you're very likely not going to be feeling hungry for a long time because your body has all the nutrients, the fats, the energy it needs to be carried over to function amazingly for hours on end. So sometimes people think, oh, it's been like 5 hours since I last ate, I should eat again. And when they eat, they feel nauseous. So I wanted to bring this tip up just so you guys can make sure that you're not confusing actual hunger with sugar cravings / carb cravings, or trying to eat out of boredom, or trying to eat for entertainment. So if you're eating when you're not actually hungry, nausea can happen. So what can you do to make sure if you're actually hungry? I like the boiled egg tip because an egg is not too fatty that it's going to cause a huge wave of nausea if you make the mistake of eating it and realize you're not actually hungry, right? So just make sure you have some boiled eggs in the fridge for whenever you're confused about whether or not you're actually hungry. It's okay to not really know if you're hungry or if you're just craving carbs. For me, it took quite a lot of time to learn my body's signals, to really trust my hunger cues and know that when I do feel hungry, I'm actually hungry for more meat and fat. So I definitely made the mistake early on of just eating many meals a day and not really eating because I was truly hungry. I was either bored or I just needed food for comfort. We all have those days. And when I ate that fatty meat or that big juicy steak, I definitely felt sick to the stomach. I wanted to throw up. But hey, I see it like this. It's absolutely okay to not know whether or not you're truly hungry. And let's say you do make the mistake of thinking that you're hungry, you eat all that fatty meat and you feel disgusting. Well, look at it this way. You didn't know, you're still taking the time to be 100% in tune with your body, and things like this are gonna happen. So what you can do next time, do the boiled egg tip, okay? Eat one boiled egg and see how you feel. If it tastes so good, so appetizing, and your body wants more, you're probably hungry, so it's probably time to eat. But if you feel sick to the stomach and you feel a little wave of nausea hitting and you kind of want to, you know, then you probably are not actually hungry and you're just bored. So what you can do is find something to entertain yourself. Read a book, go take a walk. I always find taking a walk with Simba will completely kill those thoughts of food or those feelings of hunger. I was definitely just bored. It's better to feel nauseous from eating too much meat and fat than falling off track and binging on sugar, binging on junk and carbs. So whatever happens, if you feel nausea from eating when you're not actually hungry, at least you can feel good knowing that you did not reach for the sugars or the carbs when you were thinking about eating. Instead, you reach for the meat and the fat. That's actually a tactic that I like to do whenever I used to have sugar cravings and carb cravings. I would just feed myself more meat and more fat. And despite feeling nauseous, I would still feel good and happy about myself that I did not reach for those bad foods where I would be feeling way worse compared to the nausea I was feeling with just some meat and fat. Tip number 4. This one's kind of contradictory to what I said before, but this could be an option for those who are eating one meal a day or eating huge meals and fasting for long extended periods. That is probably not a good idea if you are feeling nauseous all the time. If you're sitting down and eating one meal a day and within that one meal you're eating a lot of meat, a lot of fat, I mean, come on, if you're eating carnivore and just meat, you're already eating high amounts of fat. So that's probably causing your nausea, causing you to want to throw up, or causing you to just want to lay down and feel sick. So my first 6 months, I did not fast at all. I was eating up to 5 meals a day, small or not. You guys all know I have a big appetite, so I can't say I was eating 5 small meals per day. When I eat a lot. But at least I didn't overdo it and overstress my body by fasting so long and then allowing my body to eat, which probably would have triggered binging and purging. So what I did was I would not fast at all. I would just feed my body whenever it was hungry. Even if it was just hungry out of boredom, I fed it just to make my body feel safe. That's what I needed personally because I was taking into account my horrible eating history. I promised my body that I would eat whenever hungry so I wouldn't trigger those bulimic thoughts or those bad eating habits of binging and purging or starving. So I definitely ate when I wasn't even hungry, but I'm glad I did that because I allowed my body to just heal, feel safe, and nourish. So if you find that you have a ravenous appetite, right? You just feel insatiable and you need so much meat, so much fat in order to feel full, fasting is not a good idea. It's only going to induce huge waves of nausea when you do decide to sit down and eat. So please focus and prioritize on healing instead of weight loss or instead of doing what I'm doing right now. I hope you're not doing that, okay? I hope you take into account what your body needs right now, what your eating history was, and the fact that your body probably needs to heal a lot. So I do think smaller, more frequent meals are a smarter way to go rather than fasting all day and eating a gigantic meal. If you're feeling nauseous, that's probably the reason why. So spread it out into smaller meals. Just give your body time to adjust and adapt. So don't overwork your body by pushing on this intermittent fasting schedule. I'm definitely a huge fan of doing OMAD and fasting all day so I can be really productive and energetic while fasted. But I didn't come to where I am right now by forcing it on my body early on. I went 6 whole months of just eating whenever hungry, even when I was just bored hungry or even when I was craving carbs. I just ate the meat and all the fat. And after 6 months, my appetite started decreasing to the point where I didn't feel like eating for hours on end. And that's how my natural fasting started. So I definitely started intermittent fasting organically, naturally, unintentionally. It was not an intentional decision. And I think that's the best way to approach fasting, to just let it happen naturally. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. You don't have to feel like you're missing out. Fasting is not necessary. Tip number 5, don't drink water too close to your eating times. I know that sounds a little weird, but I've noticed when I have a huge belly of a bunch of water in my stomach and then I start mixing it with all the beef and the fats that I'm eating after it, I start feeling really nauseous. If you do have to take some sips of water to wash down the meat or the eggs that you're eating, just take small sips. Don't gulp or chug down water while you're eating all that meat and fatty meat. Another thing is to swap the water with sparkling water. I find that the sparkling bubbliness and the refreshing nature of drinking sparkling water helps cut the nausea from eating fat. Especially if you drink it chilled, that sparkling water is going to help cool your body temperature down, and it's going to cut the fat and the nausea and give a good balance to the warm and fatty heaviness of the meat that you're eating. And last but not least, tip number 6. Add in some more variety. If you find that you're cooking your daily ground beef and you just want to feel like throwing up or you have absolutely no appetite when you smell that ground beef, I think it's time for your body to just try a new meat. Sometimes it just takes a little bit more variety to help you feel better and to help with the nausea. I think there is such a thing as meat aversion. I know it's crazy of me to say that you can get tired of ribeye, you can get tired of ground beef. It's possible, and it's probably just a symptom of being in the adaptation period. Your body is just too overwhelmed and sick of all that meat and fat day after day, meal after meal. So sometimes what helps is some variety. If that means bringing in some cheese, preferably some raw cheese to help with the variety, to bring something new into the palate, why not? It's going to be better to eat some cheese than feel nauseous all the time. Maybe try adding in some bacon. The crispy crunchiness of bacon can probably help bring some new variety in texture and taste. You can also just opt for different meats. If you're just eating beef, try adding in some lamb, maybe some wild game like venison, some bison, or try adding leaner cuts of meat like chicken, turkey, poultry. But let's say even with all this variety, you still feel nauseous, you still have no appetite, then you're probably just not hungry. So just don't eat. That's the thing with carnivore diet. You're probably going to start feeling like you cannot feel hungry for long periods of time. That is normal, and you do not have to feel alarmed by it. I just want you guys to see the baby Simba's state right now. He's passed out on the floor. He always sleeps in very close proximity to me or Steak and Butter Guy, and I just love that because he's always close by. And whenever I want to take a break, I just look at him and I feel happy and energetic again. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, turn on the bell and notifications. I wish you all luck and I hope you guys can deal with this nausea with these tips that I provided in this video. I hope you found it helpful. And as always, if you think I missed any major tips or if you have any advice that worked for you, especially you experienced carnivores, definitely leave a comment down below. We can learn from each other and help each other out. I always say the comment section below is an excellent way to connect and learn. So leave a comment or just read through the comments, interact with all of the carnivores in this community. You'll come to find that all the carnivores are super willing to help and give knowledge and support, especially those in the SB Gang group. So if you haven't joined, click the link in my description box and join the SB Gang. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video. I am going to go take Simba out to pee right now, so I think it's time. I'll see you guys in the next video and have a great day. Bye, SBG out.